Hi class, we're going to look at how I completed this colored pencil drawing right there. It's not very big. I'm having to work a little bit smaller because it's really hard to get paper and art supplies right now. But this was a request from my daughter, who I sent her a birthday gift of colored pencils, and she wanted a video on how to create a landscape. So good luck with yours. All right, hi guys. This is just a quick little activity inspired by my daughter, Monica, whose birthday is coming up this week. I won't be able to see her on her birthday, but she recently wanted for her birthday some really good Prismacolor colored pencils, and so I sent her through Amazon. I sent her some colored pencils and some colored pencil paper, and I also sent some colorless blenders, which I'll show you later what those are, but we're not going to need them for this activity. So I have in front of me a landscape photo that I'm going to be working from, and you probably can't see my pencil lines, so I'm going to very lightly kind of sketch in my kind of path through a forest landscape. I've got some trees that are kind of crisscrossing each other right here. And we're going to start working on creating this drawing. And I'm going to start out with my grays, and I might kind of use a very pale green. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up my background. You usually want to work back to front. I kind of color like I paint. Painting, you work back to front. So that's what we're going to do with this one. I'm going to use my light gray. And this centerpiece right here, we're going to keep that very faded and gray. Notice I'm just twitching my fingers. I'm not moving my whole wrist. That's very important when you're using colored pencil. You can create big drag marks if you're not careful. I'm going to burnish it with a layer of white on top. Colored pencil is all about layers. It works best if you kind of think of colored pencils almost like paint, even though they're a drawing material. I kind of give a little hint of green to it right there. Okay, now I'm going to start working on my tree that's back here. And I'm going to kind of, I think I'll use a little bit of brown to get it started. And I'm just going to kind of give it a little bit more form right here. And in my image, these are very tall tree trunks that we see. I'm not really able to see any branches. These are very tall trees, so the branches are completely out of sight. Then I've got another there. This one's more vertical. The first one was leaning. We're going to go ahead and draw it that way. And you're going to curve or flare the bottom of your tree trunks. And you're going to make sure that they're wider at the bottom and they get narrow as they go up. Here's another leaning one. Over here, I'm just going to draw its general direction. And then here's the one that's in front of it that's covering it. And then there's one very, very far forward over here. Now that we're getting closer to the front, I can do a little bit more, like have the edge of the bottom of my tree kind of taper off. We can get a little bit more expressive because now we're no longer in the distance, we're forward. So we can actually do a little bit more detail. In the background, it doesn't really matter as much because everything, and this one, my tree is going to go off the edge. We are so close to it that we cannot see the bottom of it. And we're barely going to see this side of it. So I've got all my tree trunks going. I'm not as much detail back here. More detail is going to go up here. And then I've got kind of the edge. I'm keeping my touch very, very light. You can erase colored pencil. So if you make a mistake, as long as you're working lightly, you can erase it enough that you can put other layers on top and it really won't affect your top stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of get my in-between spots, my areas in between my tree trunks. Because like I said, I'm going to be layering, and right now I'm still working very, very lightly. A lot of times people will just immediately from the get-go press super, super hard with their colored pencil and try and fill the space as much as possible. You actually want to kind of press kind of lightly. Your blocking in stage, and that's what this is. That's what this is called, blocking in. You're just putting in your blocks of color so that you know where everything is at. So all of those weird lines that you made make sense now. Because before they were just a collection of a curved line here and some straight lines here. And now we're blocking in where everything is going to go. Since it's in the distance, I'm going to make it a little bit grayer. And I'm going to use the same gray as my background. But this time I'm giving a little bit more pressure. My trees that are further away are going to be more gray. And as I come forward, I'm going to block in these more forward trees in my midground. These are my background trees. This is my very background, but as far as my trees are called, these are my background trees. And this is going to be a little bit of gray in a darker tone. And if I can't tell the difference between these two trees, I'm just going to kind of put a little bit more pressure on that edge so I can tell them apart. And these front ones, I'm going to give a little bit more pressure so there's a difference in tone. Now that they're closer to us, these are going to be the ones that will have the majority of the texture whenever we get to putting in our tree trunk, tree bark textures. These front ones. And notice I'm kind of using the edge of my pencil. I'm not coloring like this. I would do that if I was working in something really tiny, but I'm not. So I'm scooting my fingers way back. And I'm using the side of my pencil. This will also prevent those high pressure streaks that you can get. And I'm just going like this with my hand, just twitch, twitch, twitch. And I'm keeping my marks in layers that are overlapping and close together. It's actually faster to color this way than it is to go like this real fast, because when you're going like this real fast, you're actually going up and then arcing back. And then up and arcing back, and you're actually coloring in a series of zigzags with really deep drag points that you won't be able to get rid of. Now I'm going to use that to burnish some areas. Now, don't mistake blending and burnishing as a way to fix everything. A lot of people will also take their blending stump, and if this was like charcoal or something else, and they'll just go like this over the whole thing. And if you think about that, you went to all the trouble to draw this space and these things and this space and fill them in all individually, and then you're going to just blend them and smear them all together. That's not how this works. You want to blend and burnish your areas individually, because they are individual areas. If you don't blend them individually, you'll end up creating a very flat work, because you'll be dragging shading or color from all over your work into those areas. And then it doesn't really help you. You've completely flattened any 3D effects that you could possibly get. I'm going to stop for a minute and work on this some more and come back.